Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am sharing my ultimate guide to fall romance. Alright guys, so this video took a very long time to put together, but so worth it. I am so excited to share my ultimate guide to fall romance. So I tried to pick out 8 different categories or subgenres of romance that really give me the fall vibes. So witchy romances, vampires, monsters, sports romances, dark stalker romances, gothic romances, and then a few others that I cannot remember off the top of my head. But anyway, I have 2 or 3 recs for every subcategory, so this will be like your perfect taste test for fall. So there are a ton of recs to get through. Once again, I did sort these by categories, so if you're looking for a specific kind of fall feel, use the timestamps down below. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about all these books that give off the fall vibes. Alright guys, so before we jump into the first category, I realized in the intro I said I had 2 to 3 books per category. That was a bold-faced lie. So depending on the category, I have up to like 6 or 7 recs. It really depends if I read like a ton of books in that subgenre. But anyway, now that that is out of the way, we are starting off with vampires, or books featuring vampires. One of my absolute favorite types of books to read in the fall. I've been obsessed with vampires since True Blood. Oh my god, Eric Northman. Literal obsession. So I read that entire Charlaine Harris series while I was watching like the True Blood TV show. They are vastly different, by the way. Both amazing, just very different. And also, obviously, I love Twilight. So, love everything with vampires. I will also be doing a full like vampire rec video. Now, starting off, I think my top vampire book is Black Sunshine by Karina Halley. This is the first book in a dark fantasy romance duet where we're following this girl named Lenore. Now, Lenore is the only child to her 2 aging parents, and she is about to turn 21. So her parents request that she accompany them to this cabin in the middle of nowhere for her birthday, and Lenore agrees. However, before she can make it to said cabin, she is captured by a vampire who tells Lenore, hey, your parents are actually witches, and not only witches, they are vampire hunting witches, and they plan to kill you when they take you to that cabin because you are actually a vampire. Now, Lenore does not believe this, obviously. However, she eventually has to realize, and she does realize, that he is telling the truth. It is their romance. I think this is my favorite duet ever by Karina Halley. It is just so good. It is spicy. The romance is so like angsty, and I love it. I love it so much. So highly recommend. If you enjoy this, there's also a spin-off duet set in the same world, Blood Orange. And then I think the second book is called Black Rose. Unfortunately, I didn't love this duet quite as much as the first one I just talked about, but it is still really enjoyable. So in this, we're following kind of the opposite of the last book. We're following this girl who is raised as a vampire hunter, and she ends up being sent to kill the vampire that Dracula is based off of. However, when she gets there, that vampire believes that she is actually the reincarnation of his lost love, and it's their romance. I did enjoy this, just not quite as much as Black Sunshine. Then, if you're looking for more of like an action-y type of vampire book, we have Serpent and the Wings of Night, or essentially any book by Carissa Broadbent. I think they all feature vampires. Serpent and the Wings of Night is a great place to start. This is the first book in a duet where we are following this young girl named Araya. She was orphaned as a child and found by the king of the vampires, who took Araya back to his home and raised her as his ward. Now, Araya has grown up amongst vampires. It's very dangerous. So when she comes of age, she decides she is going to join the Kajari, which is a fight to the death, and the only person or the remaining survivor is granted a gift from the goddess Nyaxia. So this book is essentially just following Oria as she is thrust into these trials, and she's gonna have to join up with vampires from rival clans, and it is just a great start to an amazing world, so highly recommend. Also, Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent, similar feel, a little bit more like culty, but that is a standalone if you want to check that out. And also, Six Scorched Roses. Oh my gosh, that is the best novella I've ever read, also set in the world of Nyaxia by Carissa Broadbent, can be read as a standalone, but in that we're essentially following this girl that is trying to save her town, so she ends up making a deal with this vampire that she will give him 6 magical roses in exchange for vials of his blood, because she hopes she can make a cure out of his blood, and it goes from there, and it's so, so good. Then, if you're looking for more of like Omegaverse, but make it like super, super light, we have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I know this has very, very mixed reviews. However, I think if you are new to Omegaverse, this is a great place to start. But this is essentially following a vampire who has to marry a werewolf in order for their 2 people to live harmoniously. And that is all I really remember from this book, because I read this when it first released. I know I gave it 4 stars, but I definitely have to do a reread before the sequel releases, which I think is very soon. And then finally, we have On Wings of Blood. This is a vampire kind of academy romance that reminded me slightly of Harry Potter meets Zodiac Academy. We're following this fae that ends up coming from another realm, and she wakes up in a realm of vampires. And immediately, these vampires think she might be a dragon rider. Now, there are no dragons left in this realm. However, they still think she is something special, so they decide to have her become engaged to another very high-up vampire, and she is now going to have to attend Bloodwing Academy. And when she gets there, she is bullied relentlessly. So this is very much a bully romance. And she does find her own little clique of like humans and other, like, I think half-fae that all hang out together. But for the most part, this is a bully romance. Kind of also has that was like Draco Malfoy type vibes with the hero. Overall, enjoyable. I will definitely be reading the sequel once the audiobook releases. But yeah, those are some of my favorite vampire romances, and once again, I will be filming a full vampire rec video with a ton more. Alright guys, so next up is Witchy Romances, or romances featuring witches. Now, I try to read at least one like witchy type book every fall, but I definitely have some favorites. I feel like I always rec Hollow Heathens by Nicole Fiorina every single fall rec video. This is one of my favorites. She's one of my favorite writers. If you have not read the Stay With Me series, oh my gosh, it is so, so good. So this actually features male witches, which I feel like you don't come across as often. In this, we are following this girl named Fallon. Now, Fallon left her hometown when she was just a baby and has never been back. But she still stays in communication with her last living relative, her grandfather, over the course of her life. Well, one day she receives this mysterious letter from her grandfather that says, hey, can you please return to Weeping Hollow, the place she was born, and help take care of me like we're all each other has left in the world. So Fallon is like, okay, will do, drives there, only to discover her grandfather never wrote her that letter, and not only that, for some reason, she cannot leave this town. So soon after arriving, she has this instant connection with this immortal guy named Julian, who she later finds out is one of the heathens and is absolutely hated by everyone in this community. This definitely has a like Romeo and Juliet type feel to it, and you want these 2 people to be together, and absolutely everything and everyone is trying to drive them apart, and I absolutely love this. So if you've read this, you could also read Bone Island, which I still have not read, which I believe is set in the same world, if not a sequel, to Hollow Heathens. So this is actually on my fall TBR that I'm about to film. Then another one is The Coven. Now, this is perfect if, one, you love elemental magic like I do, but also if you like darker fantasy romance and also really enjoy the kind of forbidden student-teacher trope. So in this, we're following this girl whose mother was part of this coven, which is a group of witches that actually own a university and do really sketchy things. So our main character's mother ended up fleeing this coven and had our main character along with her brother in secret. Well, when our main character's mother dies, the coven finds out about our main character and decides that they are going to try to bring her to the university. Eventually, they find out about her younger brother. They kind of use that against her. So she has to go to this university and learn all about magic. And when she gets there, she meets the headmaster of this university, who also happens to be, he's not a vampire, but he's something very similar to that was created by the witches in the coven. So they control him, but he has decided he's going to make our main character's life kind of a living hell, but also is very attracted to her. So it's their romance, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I can't wait to continue with the series. I'm hoping to do a reread of this in October. Now, there is a new book coming out. It's called Song of the Hell Witch, if my memory is correct. And apparently that's like a witchy down with the patriarchy book, and those are my absolute favorite. So this is releasing on September 9th. I definitely want to read it this fall. But apparently this is following a woman that uses forbidden magic, or women are no longer allowed to use magic in this world. It's been completely outlawed, and she is desperate to escape, so she joins up with her past love in order to go to another kingdom where women are allowed to practice magic. But down with the patriarchy, like, that just sounds epic. So I will definitely be picking that up in the next month. And moving on to the next category. So next up we have shifters. Now typically I would say werewolf/omegaverse. However, I have recently come to find out those are not interchangeable. So in the books I'm about to recommend, all of the characters are actually able to transform into wolves. So they actually do turn into wolves in all of these books. I realize Omegaverse is its own like whole separate thing. If anyone has any Omegaverse recs for me, please leave them down in the comments below. I've been trying to get into Omegaverse. I get really confused with the different hierarchies and things like that. Anyway, with that out of the way, first up we have Sanctum, which is the first book in the Blackwater Pack series. This series is criminally underhyped. I have recommended this series to a few close friends, and they have all absolutely loved it. It's almost like a grown-up Twilight, but instead we have wolves instead of like vampires and wolves. And it has that like Twilight young adult feel while still being pretty dark. I actually think this is technically classified as young adult. I would definitely check trigger warnings before giving this to someone younger than like 17. There is like non-con and some very upsetting things that appear on page, specifically in this book and very early in this book. So check trigger warnings. But with that out of the way, I love this series. It is so, so good and perfect for this time of year. So in this, we are following this girl named Sky, and I'm pretty sure she's an Omega, but she's living in this werewolf pack, and her mother is also one of the lower like hierarchies of wolf. So because of this, she is forced to work in almost like a pleasure house and pleasure the higher up werewolf. So it's a terrible, terrible life. And Sky has been spared having to do this because she has not come of age yet. Well, that all changes when a new werewolf decides he is going to lower the age, essentially, of consent. So she is going to be forced to do what her mother is doing, and her mother immediately is like, no, daughter of mine, we are getting out of here. So they run away to the Blackwater Pack, which is like a very safe and nice werewolf pack, and they are so nice they decide to take in these two kind of, not fugitives, but runaways from the other pack. So when Sky, our main character, gets there, she meets the son of the pack leader, who's going to be the next alpha. They have immediate chemistry, and then they end up going to essentially werewolf school together, all while Sky's original pack is trying to get her and her mother back. And do yourself a favor, read this series if you have it. I love it. So, so good. I will also admit, though, I have not read the last book in this series. There was no audio at the time I was reading this, so I am not completely caught up, but it is absolutely amazing. Now, another kind of werewolf shifter romance is Rabid. This is also really dark, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about this one, and this was also a standout read for me. So in this, we are following a girl that lives also in a werewolf community, and her mother ends up passing away. Now, she is so upset about this, but is also still kind of looking forward to a ceremony that is about to take place that is going to allow her to shift into her wolf for the first time. However, during this ceremony, something goes horribly wrong. The pack alpha ends up assaulting our main character while this ceremony is going on, which causes her and her wolf not to bond correctly. So now she is considered rabid. She does not have control of her wolf. So her pack decides they're just gonna dump her in the middle of nowhere and have this like barbarian pack essentially kill her. Well, it turns out that pack is actually not what everyone assumed, and it goes from there. Really fun, standalone, very spicy. Definitely check this out. Then, if you are looking for a YA series, we have Mate Finder. I will admit, I didn't love this first book. It read a little young for me, and I do forget a lot of the plot. But what I do remember is we were following this human girl who ends up getting into a car accident, and then before she passes away, a wolf ends up biting her, and this causes her to shift, and they find out that she is actually a super special wolf. She is a mate finder wolf, meaning that she will be able to help wolves locate their mates, which is like super special. So we're following her as she does this. Also, there are enemies trying to kill her, and it goes from there. I've had a lot of people tell me I need to continue with this series, so another series I'm hoping to continue in October. And then finally, I have not read this yet. However, we have Into Their Woods. This is also on my like fall TBR. And this is a Wide Shoes shifter wolf romance. And I think it's a Red Riding Hood reimagining. I've been seeing kind of mixed reviews, but I've had this on so many TBRs and I really want to finally get to it. And next up is Dark Academia. I love that aesthetic. However, I always think Dark Academia goes with winter, but I know a lot of you consider it very, very fall. So I have a few Dark Academia recs. First up, we have Serpentine Valentine by Gianna Darling. Now, this is a dark academia romance that is slightly inspired by Medusa. Also, check trigger warnings, but I really, really enjoyed this. I haven't read very many sapphic romances, and I loved the romance in this. So in this, we were following this girl who ends up being blamed for something, a crime that she did not commit, and also ends up being punished for it. And it is just absolutely horrible. But she decides after all of this that she is going to get revenge. So she sets her sights on the headmaster of this university's innocent daughter. And it's their romance. Highly, highly recommend. Then we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I know, this has unbelievably mixed reviews. It seems like you either loved this book or you absolutely like loathed, detested this book. I was the former. I really enjoyed this. So in this, we are following Alex, or Galaxy Stern, and she is able to see grays or ghosts. After a horrific incident that leaves her the only survivor of something very, very horrible, a school, I believe it's Yale, realizes that she has this ability. So they ask her to come to their school and be part of this secret society that essentially monitors other secret societies that all use and really take advantage of using occult magic. So Alex, along with her mentor Darlington, are gonna have to work together to like make sure all of these different secret societies stay in line. But while doing so, there is another kind of catastrophe. So this is also dual timeline. So we're following Alex as she is kind of learning about her abilities and what her life was like prior to the school, but also following her after a horrible event has taken place at the school and she needs to solve a mystery. So overall, really liked it. Super, super dark. I really enjoyed the writing. Highly, highly recommend. Just check triggers. There is a very upsetting scene that does take place on page, and it's detailed, and I feel like that is one of the main reasons a lot of people did not enjoy this book, and I totally understand that, but definitely check triggers. Then we have Enigma by Runix. Unfortunately, I didn't love this, but I feel like I recommend Gothicana by the same author, so often I wanted to switch it up. So in Enigma, very similar kind of plot to Gothicana. We're following this girl whose sister ended up going missing, and she went missing at a certain university, or she ended up perishing. I forget, one of those. Either way, our main character decides to go to this university to find out exactly what happened to her sister. And when she gets there, weird and strange things start occurring. This also kind of has like a secret society vibe to it. And overall, I just felt like there was so much going on with this plot that the end just felt like we were trying to wrap up 6 different storylines very, very quickly. So the ending of this just felt very, very chaotic. So unfortunately, I didn't love this, but if you enjoy Gothicana, you might want to give this a try. And then last up, we have the Atlas 6. It has been years since I've read this book. This is one of the first books I feel like I talked about when I moved into this house over 5 years ago. But in this, we are following these magicians. I believe there's 8 of them, but I could be mistaken. And they've all been selected to take part in this contest to become one of the guards of the Alexandrian Society, which guards the Library of Alexandria. Now, all of these different kind of like contestants have unique abilities, which are very well explained. I did really enjoy this. It also gets a lot of mixed reviews, solely for the fact that it was marketed as a spicy romantasy. That is not this book. There is spice. There are some romances. I would consider this much more a fantasy that just kind of has some romances thrown into it than an actual romantasy. Also, this author's writing style takes a while to get used to. I feel like she might be much more intelligent than I am, and that's why I struggled. So know that going in. I did immersive read this with an audiobook. But overall, if you want dark academia vibes, there are so many of them in this book. Alright guys, so I actually pulled my tiny Jalen Hurts off the top of my shelf to help with this next category. So, we have sports romances, but specifically football romances. Fall, to me, equals football season. I am a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. My dad is one of the biggest Philadelphia Eagles fans. He raised me. I've been obsessed with the Philadelphia Eagles for a very long time. Besides the 2 years that I was a Dallas Cowboys fan when my brother kind of took over, but I grew out of that very, very quickly. I cannot get into sports romances. I have such a hard time reading them. The only author that really has me like hooked when it comes to sports romance is Mariana Zapata for some reason, and those books are chunky. But anyway, I do have 3 football romances that I enjoy, or at least 2 that I really enjoyed. One I'm hoping to enjoy because it has really good ratings. So, moving Jalen over. First up, we have The Blind Side by Candy Steiner. I read this book when it first released and did really enjoy it. It was one of the first football romances I ever read. So in this, we are following a quarterback who ends up fake dating the person in charge of his like PR, and she's also a virgin, and feelings start to get a little bit muddled during this whole fake dating, and really enjoyable contemporary romance. The other one is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I know it's my friend Carrie from Book for Romance, like favorite book of all time. And I also really, really enjoyed that one. That is kind of similar plot to The Blind Side a little bit. We are following this assistant to a famous quarterback, and she's essentially his assistant, also his maid, also his chauffeur. She does everything for him. And after something happens, she ends up quitting, never expecting that this quarterback would show up at her door begging her to come back. And it also turns into a bit of a like fake dating situation. So really, really enjoyed The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. And then last up, we have Say You Swear. I have owned this physical book for over a year. I still have not read this. I feel like every time I go to pick it up, I have a friend that reads it and gives it a negative review, despite the fact that it has great reviews on Goodreads. So let me know if you've read this and you know my reading taste. Do you think I would like this? Because I know a lot of people that have said this is one of the best sports romances ever, but then I had 2 friends, one DNF'd it and one just really, really was not a fan. So kind of nervous, but I feel like it's time. I need a really good sports romance. So those are 3 football romances, and go Birds. All right, guys, so the next category are books set in a Gothic or creepy setting. Now, I don't want to say Gothic romance because I received a little bit of pushback from my Gothic Romantasy rec video. I had a few comments of people saying that's not real Gothic romance. I also have a few content creator friends that are receiving similar pushback on their videos. So just to be clear, these are romances that are set in like a creepy or eerie setting, not necessarily like your classic Gothic romance. Now, first up, we have Master of Salt and Bone by Carrie Lake. Honestly, every book I've read by Carrie Lake kind of fits that really creepy and eerie description. All of her settings make me unbelievably uncomfortable. Also, her writing She writes eerie like no other. It is so descriptive and just, she is the perfect author to read in the fall. Now, like I said, first up we have Master of Salt and Bone. This was the first book I ever read by Carrie Lake, and when I first read it, I think I gave it 2 stars. I was not reading dark romance at the time, and this was unlike anything I had ever read. Since rereading it, 5 stars, one of my favorites. So in this, we are following a woman who, for some reason, has been kind of ostracized by her community. So she takes up a position working for this recluse who also has a very, like, bad notoriety. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you guys know what I mean. A lot of people in the town are also very afraid of him. So while she is working with him, she starts to uncover a little bit about his history and his motivations, but also realizes he is harboring some serious secrets and he might be a little bit not completely with it. So there are also some strange events that start occurring, and it really goes from there, but it is such a like creepy, perfect romance, so highly recommend. Then we have Anathema by Carrie Lake, or Anathema, I always forget which is correct, but anyway, this is a dark fantasy romance that I have talked about in a lot of videos, but essentially we were following this girl that when she was very young, she was found outside the Eating Woods, which in this very patriarchal community, they see as a means for like capital punishment. So if you do something terrible, you are sent into these woods and never seen or heard from again. So our main character's sister does something very, very bad and is sent into those woods, and our main character decides to follow. Now, when she enters, she ends up in a completely different realm, and in this realm, there is an assassin known as the Scorpion who has these shadow powers, and it's their romance. I was obsessed. This book is so, so good, and this sequel is releasing on September 9th. I cannot wait. Then, finally, we have The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I've talked about this book a lot as well. This was one of my top reads of the year. So, so good. So in this, we are following this girl named Sybil, and she is a diviner, meaning she receives these prophetic dreams from these godlike beings known as omens. Well, one day she is kind of working as a diviner, and one of her fellow diviners goes missing. So now Sybil is determined to find out what is happening to her diviners, so she teams up with this reluctant knight who does not believe in any of this magic, and together they are going to try to find her friends. This has a gargoyle that I will lay down my life for. I love him so, so much. So this is another absolute 5-star, highly recommend. And the next category is serial killer / stalker. So I love horror movies. I watch horror movies year round, but during the fall is the only time I can actually get my husband to watch them with me. And something about like serial killers and stalkers in books really reminds me of those types of horror movies. So first up, my favorite in this list is Butcher and Blackbird by Brain Weaver. If you're a horror movie fan, you will love this book. It pays homage to a lot of those like classic horror characters like Hannibal Lecter and other murderers like that. So in this, we are following 2 vigilante serial killers that end up meeting when they go to kill the same person and decide they are going to make this a kind of ritual. Every year, they are going to meet up and race to kill a serial killer. So once again, vigilante serial killers. Check the triggers. You will laugh out loud. There is accidental cannibalism in this. I honestly, I've actually read 2 books that featured accidental cannibalism, so this is not the only one. But still, that is a wild thing to feature in a book. But this is really good. The humor is so solid, so definitely pick this up. Then we have like the Bookstagram darling, Lights Out. I also did really, really enjoy this. This is kind of like Stalker, not really Stalker light, but it's dark, but also has enough humor that this is great if you are new to darker romance. So we're following a nurse that is trying to spice up the bedroom. So she watches a lot of masked men like TikToks. And one day she's drinking a little bit too much and she ends up messaging one of these masked guys. To which he replies. Now the guy she messaged, she doesn't realize, is actually a real life serial killer. And they have a romance and it's their romance. Humor in this is also really, really good. And then finally, this technically is mafia and not serial killer or stalker. It is kind of stalker. We have Fear Me, Love Me. This is a mafia labyrinth reimagining. I love this book so much. So this is actually the Mystic Box edition. I don't think I ever showed this before in a video. This is one of my most prized possessions. This book is so good. So in this, if you're familiar with Labyrinth, very similar plot. We are following this girl that when she was like, I think 16 or 17, she comes home one day to find out her baby brother has been taken by the guy that is running this town. He's very high up in the mafia, and he's been taken because the father owes money or something like that. So our main character says, oh, no, I'm gonna save my brother, and does just that, earning the respect of the guy that took her brother. Well, so much respect that he actually becomes kind of obsessed with her and begins stalking her, all while the town thinks she's a bit crazy. So we're following their romance, her also trying to stay away from this guy, and it is such a wild book, but also really, really fun. So definitely check this out if you haven't yet. And saving the best for last, we have Monster Romance. Now, admittedly, I am not the content creator to watch for Monster Romance recs. I do not read very many. I would check out Jen from the Book Refuge or Ava from Ava's Romance Books. I know they read a lot more than me. Actually, two of these books were recommendations from Jen when I picked them up. So, that being said, I do have a few monster romances that I have read that I will rec. The first one, I also have to say, I did not really enjoy, but it does feature almost every single monster you can think of. So we have Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. In this, we are following a woman that is working for a maid, or as a maid, but she's not very good at it, and she's very afraid she's going to lose her position, so she jumps at the opportunity to work for this house of ill repute and service a bunch of different monsters who she ends up having a romance with. It's wide shoes, but a little of everything. There's a golem, there's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, there's a vampire, pretty sure there's a sphinx. It's a lot of monster spice. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, definitely check that out. Then we have one of my favorites, Ensnared. Now, I never in a million years would have thought I'd enjoy a spider romance. However, Katad is so adorable and needs to be protected at all costs, and I really, really love this. Enough to buy the special edition, so definitely highly recommend. But in this, we are following a alien spider living on his alien spider planet, and he is working under this queen who wants to make him her mate, but he is very reluctant. He wants to kind of be free. So one day he goes out foraging and he finds a spaceship, and in that spaceship is Ivy. She is a human that was headed to another planet when her spaceship crashed. So Katad ends up waking up Ivy, and at first the two can't even communicate because he obviously does not speak her language, or same with her. So they're just kind of like miming to each other, and it's absolutely adorable. Highly recommend checking out the fan art for it. So anyway, it's their romance. It's very cute, also spicy. Definitely pick this up. Then we have another one that Jen from the Book Refuge recommended. This is also one of my top monster romances. I'm not really sure if it beats Ensnared, but it's definitely up there. So we have Soul Eater by Lily Mayne. This is like a post-apocalyptic monster romance where we're following this guy who has joined the military because monsters have taken over and he is just trying to survive, so his best opportunity was to join the military. Well, they treat him absolutely terribly, and on his first mission, he is sent out to try to kill Wynn, who is this very evil monster that pops up every 5 years and sucks the souls out of people. Well, when our main character goes to kill Wynn, he can't do it, and he ends up passing out. And when he wakes up, all of his friends are dead, but Wynn has been captured, and it goes from there. It's their romance. It's so good. So definitely pick this up. It is also the first in a series, so there's lots of other monsters you get to meet. And then my most recent monster book that I actually did end up DNFing, unfortunately, but do plan on eventually picking back up, Kiss of the Basilisk. This is 600 pages of snake smut. If that sounds enjoyable to you, give this book a try. There is a plot in there somewhere. It is really buried down in this book. There is so so much snake spice. It's a time. Once again, I will eventually finish this book, but this is following this character named Tem, who, in order to try to win the prince's hand, she has to learn the art of seduction from a basilisk, and she gets really, really into it. So another monster romance to check out. Alright guys, so that is it for my ultimate guide to fall romance. Please let me know down in the comments below if there are any other fall rec videos you would like to see. I do plan on doing a full video for essentially every category that I had in this video, but I am sure there's even more like fall subgenres that I couldn't think of. So please let me know down in the comments below. And I'd like to say a special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Christy, Kat, Lada, Leslie, and Nerdy. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. I could not do this without you guys, so thank you. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week.